So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, sunshine. Super excited to be bringing an amazing entrepreneur to our community today. Somebody I admired a lot in business and in life because got a million things going on and just keeps showing up. I love the tenacity. Please welcome to our community, Haley Gray. She
Hey,
is the
everybody.
owner of In2itive Biz Solutions, and she is also the founder of the Women Entrepreneur Network. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And this series that I had started to create was this community itself is all about two things: the emerging and aspiring entrepreneur, and knowing that you might not have a lot of cheerleaders in your life when you start the journey of business.
Mhm.
And I think there's a myth about the solopreneur because we don't get there to success on our own. And not all of us have good supports, but this is a place where you can network, ask for help, feel positive, and truly just feel also a safe space to get some good, hard truth, but business advice. So I want to start off at the beginning, because I know you do multiple things. Did you always think you were going to be an entrepreneur?
I can definitely say I did not think I was always going to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I didn't get that bug into my bonnet, that bee in my bonnet until like 2013. So, no, I had a long career in tech as an engineer and a manager and doing all the IT geeky things until I went back to Duke and I got my MBA, and my manager kept saying, "You're going to leave." And I was like, "No, I'm not. You're going to leave." "No, I'm not." "You're going to leave." "Okay."
Nothing like being encouraged out the door of, what am I not seeing? And I'm
Yeah.
curious, when you started to think, maybe I will start a business, like, what did you think the first business would be?
So I knew what it was going to be because I did my concentration in entrepreneurship and innovation. And part of that process was walking through where I was at with that particular business at the time, which was a senior non-medical private duty home care agency. So I did that for 3 years after I graduated, because life happens to me. I don't know if it happens to everybody in quite the same way or quite as spectacularly. But my mother passed away the week before I started at Duke. And I was working full time and I was leading Girl Scout troops and I was at Duke getting my MBA. Um, it took an entire village to get me through, and just from back end support. And my dad passed away 6 weeks after I finished the program. And I had done this concentration in entrepreneurship and innovation. And I was like, I might stay here, or I might switch jobs, or I might actually start this business. And my dad died. And I was like, you know what? Life is too damn short to be a square peg in a round hole. And I am definitely a square peg in a round hole here. So,
Mhm.
not that I didn't love the people I worked with, not that I didn't enjoy my job, not that I wasn't being promoted, but I just didn't feel that I was meeting my full potential. So I went out and I started my home care agency. And on the side, I was doing a little bit of business consulting. And I'm like, I've left the tech world. I'm never writing another line of code again. That's behind me now. And a lot of my career in tech was actually on the front end. I did a lot of stuff down in the network stack, but I did a lot of stuff on the front end, which is like um, user design and implementation of the user design and applets, portlets, servlets, all the Java thingies. And I started with Java when it was in beta. So, I mean, it was kind of a natural transition for me when people kept going, well, I hired somebody to do my website, but I never got all the pages finished. Only half the pages are there. Well, I hired somebody to do my website and these 53 things are wrong. And they never would get to done. And it's like I spent $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 on a basic website and things are not done yet. And I'm like, that's really horrifying. So I would be like, well, I'm not really a developer, but I'll hop in and I'll fix it. And thus that started happening. And I was also doing some social media management on the side because I'm like, oh, this social media stuff is pretty easy. Kind of grok the algorithms. Start a Facebook group. That'll be fun. Okay.
Just so we're clear, guys, her group is like 76,000 strong now. So this a little idea ballooned. And I
Yeah.
love that though, because I think we do, like I always think, and it's not one line in the sand. Like there's many in the journey of this path. And whether you start as a consultant, a side hustler, it moves to I'm a business owner and maybe entrepreneur. Like I think there's a different strength of conviction as this journey unfolds. But we do break that line in the sand, said, it could take a death in the family. It could take a really hard case. In my case, it was, unemployment and a course correction in my career that said, there's a line in the sand. Life is too short to be the square peg in the round hole.
Yeah.
And no one is, I don't mean this badly, but no one's coming to save you because you've got to figure out what you want. But at the same time, the moment you say, I'm prepared to look, you're hearing things that maybe you didn't know were your path. So you're like, I'm never going to write another code. I'm never going to go down this path. And I could go fix that. This is quite interesting. I am prepared to learn. I love this idea because obviously you've got formal education behind you, but tell me a little bit about your perspective of learning, because I think a lot of people think I can't start until I know. And from the story you just started to allude to, it wasn't like you said, I know this. It's more of like, can you? And it's like, sure, I can figure that out. But talk to me a little bit about that, because that's a really unique approach. I think it's so fundamental for entrepreneurs to realize. Start messy.
Start
Learn as you go.
And don't be afraid to do all the things. I think that there's like this misconception that you need to hire a VA out of the gate. I know I did a bunch of that, and that I couldn't do certain things, or I needed somebody to do them for me. And nothing could really be further from the truth. And I will say, I definitely got the knock upside the head in 2016 after my daughter had a fall from a horse, traumatic brain injury, subsequently developed schizophrenia, and really severe mental health issues. And she's doing a lot better now. But we're in a very supportive environment. It took a long time to get there. So I decided to sell the home care agency and be done with that piece because it was very stressful, and just do the little techie pieces here and there, and do a little bit of business consulting and just kind of play with this stuff and see what happens. And then here I am, because it was allowing me that time and freedom, flexibility to deal with having 3 younger kids, and then the older kid with all the issues and in and out of hospital and back and forth, and all the trips to the doctor and all of the things that happened.
Well, I love that you get to be the architect of it. And this is an important one I want to talk on too, because, I often hear this adage of, most businesses, 80%, stats pretty high, they say, quote unquote, fail after 5 years. And I take challenge with that statement, because I said some businesses were meant to serve a purpose. And it could be that, yes, I've started this home care agency and it served its purpose, but at that point I didn't want it anymore. And my direction and my needs and my goals shift. So I can let it go intentionally to say, I want to recraft what success looks like in this new chapter. And know that, I became a serial entrepreneur, not because I set out to be a serial entrepreneur, but because one thing led to a discovery that created a new environment where I was like, wow, I can contribute there. And then another one met through collaboration where it's like, can you go and support over here? And it's like, you're leaving opportunity on the table. Well, let's take a look at that. It snowballs, but you did get to craft. And chose to craft. It says, I am doing this my way. And not to be the, as a solo person in that decision, because obviously you had support, you had family, you had other people in the room who were watching, your ability to work your way through this growth that you've had, but you got to redefine it. So do you felt when you were making the decision, were you intentional about it, or did it sort of happen without you taking the steps?
I would say a little bit of both, honestly. With my daughter having had her health conditions, I wound up in the hospital with what we thought was potential heart attack symptoms. So it was definitely, a kick in the pants of here, you're going to change. And I would definitely say that for a while there, I was doing what I wanted to do, but it was a little bit reactionary, and I was kind of doing what I needed to do to get where I needed to go. There's definitely a huge amount of hustle involved, but it was also hustle where it's bound by all of these other constraints.
Mhm.
I'm dealing with doctors 20 hours this week, or here we go with yet another hospitalization. So I was working my business in between this other stuff going on. And, frankly, there for a bit, I was driving for Uber and doing what I needed to do to make some money
Mhm.
while I was growing my business, while I was keeping everybody alive and in one piece. So it definitely some level of intentionality and some level of reaction, and I will say I chose to do the Uber thing so that I wouldn't be desperate for, a particular client in my business.
This is an interesting one, and I know I've had some recent conversations with people because obviously this is tough economic climate, and this group that we talk to here and the
Mhm.
audiences you and I also service is the emerging entrepreneur, and saying it's not like there's a smooth ride. It's not like you start your business and immediately have revenue. And hello, anybody who keeps abusing you of that on social media, saying get $10,000 clients in 30 days, please stop buying into that crap.
Oh
Because
yeah.
the same way you spent money and intention to go get education, and you did an MBA and so did I, or you went to go learn a skill, a professional skill, you spent time and study and money. Don't expect that you're going to start an entrepreneur journey and not have to learn and grow, and do take some realities of, I need some checks and balances for my mental health. I need to keep everybody alive. And guys, that's a serious quote. It is serious. You need to keep people alive in your life and yourself,
Mhm.
and do what needs to get done. But it's effort on the right things. If you have a clear destination, which is, I am not quitting. And I
Mhm.
think one thing I know from the time that you and I are getting to know each other is there is that great drive of, I'm not going to give up. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard when you're a strong woman, and I think it's true for men too, but I only speak because we're women. Uh, you know, I know I just need to keep the boat alive. I need to keep myself alive. And there's a real commitment that I'm not given any other choice on the table. But it's also the hardest bit to be in, because when you are strong by nature, no one thinks to look back. Are you okay? How are
Mhm.
you doing? And you just keep white knuckling it. And eventually, I know in the storyline that there's some corners that were turned,
Mhm.
and the momentum starts to build. Tell me what that felt like. Did you get all the support? Did you feel seen, or did you start to eventually say, I need to look after myself?
I definitely had a moment where I had to say, okay, I'm going to look after myself. I mean, I white knuckled it. I didn't care what it was going to take. I ate whenever, whatever, because I didn't care. Um, I gained a ton of weight. Um, and I eventually had a moment where I landed in a surgeon's office and he said, you've got this umbilical hernia, but, if you don't lose weight, you're going to die. And you need to have weight loss surgery. And I was like, okay. Um, 6 months later, 7 months later, I had that weight loss surgery and I've lost 160 pounds. And I had to learn to put myself first, which was really, really challenging in this other landscape of kid in the hospital, kid out of the hospital, kid in the hospital, kid out of the hospital, homicidal ideations, suicidal ideations. Oh, look, we found more razor blades. Great.
Mhm.
Here, let's go down to the magistrate's office and involuntarily commit again. Uh, and, it got to be a process, but, I had to learn to put myself and my physical needs and my physical care higher up the priority list. I won't say first because it's not always
At
first
least
because I'm
on the
still
radar.
a
And
mom. Yeah, on the radar and do the things I need to do. And I will say, I'm sitting here right now. Christine has probably seen me do this sometimes when we're just chatting. I'll be sitting here, okay, well, it's this time. Okay, time to take the next round of vitamins. Because of the surgery I had, I'm malabsorptive, so I have to take vitamins all the time. Um, so it's definitely been a process of one by one by one improvement, and every day is a new challenge. Every day is a new journey. And sometimes I start over at ground zero. Some days it's definitely wake up and smell the pavement.
yeah. And that's true. I always think we get really caught into the highlight reel. Like, it's easier for somebody else. Like, nobody knows the
Mm,
shit anybody else is going through. So be careful with the judgments on that. But if you have decided
yeah.
that quitting is not on the table, and recognize that you do need to be on your radar,
Mhm.
on the priority list. And you're right. It's really hard to put yourself in, especially in the circumstances that you were facing, which are so really, truly alive or not. to say I still need me. And it's interesting because I've told this story a little bit on this community basis. When I started my business, I did it for the sense of needing me, needing a space for myself, because I was going through transitions in my personal life at the time that were warp speed, even for a girl who works at a pretty fast level to start with. And I was feeling very lost in my own identity. And when I had the opportunity, I could see the potential for me and like an identity around me. It wasn't just the labels that everybody else was giving me, because I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm now a bonus mom, I got to do all these different things, but I was really needing me and being clear on that. And when I made the decision, it was exactly the instinct of, I must put myself on the radar here and not just lose myself in the service of others, because I knew longer term I would regret it and resent it. And I wasn't prepared to damage that when I knew it was a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that self-care piece is critical. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're so busy all the time. I would say that is true. And my life is highly scheduled. Yes, I still have 4 children and a foreign exchange student until Sunday, and cats and dogs and turtles and fish and all the things. So I do have to be intentional about planning. When am I going to go to the gym? How am I going to exercise? What are we going to eat as a family? How are we going to eat? How are we going to grocery shop? When are we going to grocery shop? All the things. And definitely, I have a spouse who does definitely, his fair share of things. He does all the grocery shopping. Well, my job is then to make sure all the meal planning is done and that the grocery list is complete before he goes to the store, because he only buys what's on the list. He doesn't buy anything else. That's why he does the grocery shopping, because if Haley goes to the grocery store, Haley will just buy shit, as was evidenced when we went to Walmart earlier this week. And all kinds of interesting, but very much needed, of course, things jumped into the shopping cart $200 later.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But it's divide and conquer, and you are lucky, and I know I am too. I'm very blessed to have a partner who goes, okay, whatever, like, it's your dream. And I'm going to bring this into the conversation, if you're happy to go there, is, have you ever had to sit down and have the conversation of, this is still my dream? Because the interesting thing when you're in a dynamic, which whether it's friendship or whether it's spouse or whether it's, any kind of dynamic, when you're saying, I know I want to go start a business, and you made that decision and you intentionally started to craft it around the obligations you had. But did you ever just sit down and say, this is my vision, not yours? And let's figure out how we blend this, because it's not fair, just to be clear, guys, in my opinion, it is not clear to expect other people to carry your vision. No. It's yours. And you need to, yes, set parameters, set boundaries, have the healthy conversations with your support, but never expect them to carry it. So I'm curious, have you had to do that yourself? And did you lead into that conversation confidently, or did it blow up and you went, I've got to have this conversation now?
Well, I mean, I would say also some of it is, I'm, to put it mildly, strong-willed. So I was going to do whatever it took, however it took. Katie Barr, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. But I will say that there has definitely been that conversation over time, repeatedly, because, gosh, I'm a software engineer with an MBA from Duke. What the hell am I doing? And, that realization of, oh yeah, right. This week, my daughter was diagnosed with COVID, and everybody in her group home is diagnosed with COVID, and we're dealing with yet another care plan. So it's been relatively sane lately, but every once in a while it bubbles up, and it takes 20 or 30 hours in a week to deal with all the stuff. So, we have to have those conversations regularly of, here's where we are really at, and here's what the expectations really need to be. And I think that, yeah, it's definitely my plan. It's my thing. Don't expect the family to help. Although I do have one of my kids
Interning.
interning this summer, and one who's actually been helping me test a website right now and trying to help me find some of the tech issues on it, because we're trying to test things pretty hard before it goes live. But it's really just, yeah, it's a give and take. As long as I'm meeting my financial obligations, here's my financial obligations. It doesn't really matter how I get there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I love the fact you said this is a conversation that happens more than once. And this is true for your own vision, and it's true for the athletes. I said you're really lucky if you do have support, but don't expect it. That's why I created the community in the first place, knowing if you don't get it there, come here, because we will
Yeah.
take you at face value, whatever part of the
I would
journey you're in and whatever mess is
say,
happening. Because it's not a one-time conversation
well, and the other
to
thing that
enroll
you
anybody into this.
have to remember is that I think a lot of times our family members are trying to keep us safe. They're trying to help us walk the well understood path and keep us on the path and keep us on the straight and narrow. Whether it's, sister-in-laws or brothers or whoever, spouses, they don't always understand this entrepreneurial journey, because the way that a lot of us are raised is you grow up, you go to school, you get a college degree, you work a job until you retire, and you save your money and you do all the things and you follow all the rules. Except I didn't do that, right? And I've definitely got well, if it's so hard, then why don't you just go get a regular job? And then the answer is, well, explain to me how a regular job is supposed to work in the context of this child. Oh yeah, right. That's not going to work. So how do we work around that, right? And how do we come to a place? And I've learned, that my support network is not my family. It's not my relatives. It is my business besties, and developing those friends is really, really important. And, to some extent, my spouse will listen to me vent, and he holds space very well now, not trying to fix anything. But I choose not to burden him with some of the crazy stuff that happens in my business. I've learned that
having business
introduces even more stress into the family than just keeping my mouth shut and having those business besties and talking to them.
Yeah. Here's a really good tip for the community, and this is an important one, and it's about the lens of the conversation that you have, because having business besties is really important. Seeking advice and support from people who get the journey you're on is imperative. If you don't have a great network, please reach out and let's expand it for you. Because if you only bring home at the end of your day to, whether it's your best friend, your mom, your dad, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is your nearest physical person you spend physical time with, if all they hear is how awful and hard it is, they are right to question, why are you doing it? And yet, please remember, just don't unload to one person. If you need to unload, somebody will understand it. That's really important, is for them to see why you love it. And to recognize they can support your vision when they understand why you love it, because they want to see you happy. They want to see you, yes, challenged, yes, thriving, and know that it's not perfect and rainbows and unicorns, but you control that dialogue. And I see that mistake a lot. And they're right to say, if it's such a burden, why do you do it? Because that's really coming from a care place, not a criticizing place, a care place. So I need to remember, I had a really big win in my business today, and bring that to my husband and say, I'm really excited. I'm doing something crazy. And he's like, okay, what does that mean? And I'm like, it's this. And so he's now intentionally asking questions like, how's it going? Good or bad? I know you're in the room working really hard, but are you winning? Is there anything I can do to support? Like, well, what's really good? And please let them do that. But it will be easier when you start the conversation of, I'm enjoying this and I'm really still committed to the vision. So I'm curious now, like 2016 to now is quite a lot of years. I know there's been a lot of water under the bridge, both from the business side and from obviously what's happening with your family. But talk to me now about the energy that you bring to your business and the excitement around it, or the possibilities that you still see. Does it ebb and flow? Where are you in this moment?
It ebbs and flows. Absolutely. I would say right now, it's been kind of an interesting year, because I've taken a step sideways or a step back to work quietly in the background a bit to grow some stuff. Business is kind of interesting because a lot of times you spend that first little bit, whatever little bit is, year, 2 years, 3 years, trying to get clients. And then for me, what I see a lot of times with people is that it's really the systems and the processes that start to take over. Training, hiring, growing, building the infrastructure of the business so that it can grow appropriately. Profitability, numbers, all
Cash
the
flow.
things, cash flow, right? All the things that are really, really, really challenging for small businesses. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is really, really focusing on infrastructure and focusing on systems and processes and documenting things and doing things consistently. Because consistency really is critical. And I want to be careful, with how many clients I'm bringing on so that we're able to deliver consistently. And that's the really, really challenging thing. Because I've seen there's an ad on Facebook about, hiring unqualified freelancers and then walking away from, a building, looking over the shoulder and, everything's up in flames. And that's really true. So I've definitely learned my lessons there with hiring people and documenting and requiring time card tracking and all the things.
Yeah, this is the unsexy bit of the business, which I think is so fundamental. And so this is also a place where please don't, do it yourself. I'm going to say, let's give us a PSA right now. Let's not do it ourselves, because it is true. Learn from somebody who's been through the things. You will save you less stress, less money, and a lot of headaches, because it can just derail the conversation. And most of the people, I always say, especially in this group, is, if I sent you 100 leads, you would die. And I know you and I talked about an opportunity to do some collaboration right when we had first started to get to know each other. And you were very bold and said, clearly, you need to be prepared to take another 100 grand into your business to make this really work. And otherwise it will implode. And I respected the strength of that you did have a very clear, I've learned this is what I see happen. Are you prepared? Because I said, in the current moment, I'm not. But I will be in 2023. Let's talk back in another 6 months and continue to nurture the relationship and see each other what we're doing. Because you always need to remember the number one thing. I'm going to say solo entrepreneur, but I'm going to say, the face of a service. It's maybe a better way to phrase it. You are the line of defense of integrity. You're the line of defense on client care and owning all of the people that represent your business. So if it's not just you and you have contractors, remember, you are the buck stops with you. And so remember, you only want to take capacity on that you can continue to serve at the highest level, because once you do that, you will create raving fans. And if you don't, you will create a disaster that is very hard to recover from. And
let me tell you about some of those. Yeah. Having to redo entire websites for free, basically eating the cost of doing stuff 2 or 3 times because an unqualified developer touched it. I'm very, very particular about what technology is used, how it's implemented, what the development stack is. People sometimes think I'm a pain in the ass, but there's a reason for it.
Well, and that is the strength I have. And you're gonna, guys, if you don't yet know, but I've been teasing it. I'm gonna have a master class in it, and Haley's gonna share spaces, and she's gonna take you through that exact, not the exact example there, but the truth is, this is what's costing you a lot of time. Don't race to the lowest common denominator. There's a lot of unintended consequences when you do that. And at the same time, flipping the conversation, you don't want to be the lowest common denominator selling your services. And that's a question of value that we can talk around all the time. I'd love to know, when you look into, the next year, how are you celebrating some big wins? What's going on, and how are you going to take care of yourself as you do that?
So I've got a couple of summits coming up, and lots of cool things that we are working on, slowly but surely rolling out, that have actually been in the works, that are kind of like processing, and then that we've taken a few clients here and we take a few here and we test and we perfect. So I'm kind of excited to watch as things kind of continue to gain steam. That it's going to take a while to get all the rollouts to happen, but you know what? I'm totally excited about it.
I love that, and I'm going to say good luck and sending honestly good intentions to seeing it come live. I've got your back to help support that, and you can certainly share it in the community, because this is it, guys. You iterate your business. You don't start off thinking, I know exactly what I want to do. It changes, it evolves. Your dynamics of what success looks like, plot twists happen. Life gets rearranged quite frequently on the journey. But I want you to always feel, as you look to the horizon, energetically, like something is still coming. Nothing will come without the effort behind it. And so, if you want to follow a great, sassy, smart businesswoman who will keep you on track, and at the same time, honestly have your back of saying, I'm not trying to be the gigantic pain in your ass. I'm here to truly make you successful. And here's some things that will help shore it out. It is worth those conversations to have. So how can people find you? Because I want to give you the opportunity to let them connect you.
Yeah, they can find me on my website, in2itivebiz.com, and it's spelled with the number 2, not the TU, in it, and BIZ. And they can also find me at women'sentrepreneurnetwork.org, or they can actually Google my name, HaleyLynnGray.com.
Awesome. So after we wrap this up, I will pop your coordinates into the feed so people can find you. And guys, stick around. I said we've got a couple collaborations we've got going on. Haley, thanks for being a guest today. I honestly appreciate you as being just a woman who's owning her strength and vulnerability and determined to keep rising. So congratulations. I am cheering for you always. Thanks for sharing space with us, guys. This is the Every Entrepreneur Has a Story series. Stick around to hear from another amazing entrepreneur, and please reach out, connect to Haley. She's got something really great to offer. See you guys later.